Welcome back. David Edwin Gifford is a guest curator at the Old State House, and it's a brand new exhibit that opens today, and it will run for a year, and it's all about Arkansas pottery. Thank you so much for coming here.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yes, Arkansas Art Pottery, it basically refers to three companies in Arkansas dealing with manufacturing pottery for aesthetic purposes. And we have Washita pottery. These four pieces here, primarily matte green, these date to about 1904 to 1908. Matte green was a very favorite color for the buying public at that time. So, of course, companies are going to make those things that are popular.
So were these pieces mass-produced, or were they produced individually?
These are produced individually. For example, this deer and fawn, matte green, this is actually in size, and it was done by the initials SES, and from the research that I have done, we have discovered this is Sarah Elizabeth Smith. And so it can be hand decorated, but on the other hand, there were a few pieces that were mass produced. This is a mold. This is in creating a mold that they would put this liquid clay into, would have that high relief design on it.
Okay. Now this is a Washita.
This is Washita pottery.
Pottery,
These
okay.
four pieces right here, very rare.
Very rare, really.
To date, while we know production probably exceeded several thousand pieces during their short period of time of existence, from the research that has been done, less than 75 pieces are known to exist.
Wow. So how much is one of these pieces worth?
Well, it can vary depending on the artist effects on it, but recently a piece sold for a little over $4,000.
Expensive pottery nowadays. But Arkansas does have such a rich pottery heritage. We're a unique state in that way.
We are, and pottery really dates back to the 1880s, primarily in Benton County. Benton, Arkansas, and Saline County. Okay. And what we have is a unique clay deposit called the Wilcox Formation. And utilitarian ware, jugs, crocks, and everything were first made out of this clay. But as tin and the use of tin and glass became more popular at the turn of last century, you had the dying of utilitarian wares, and so these companies, to stay in business, and for the most part, especially in Benton, you had family livelihoods that depended on these pottery manufacturers, so they had to make something different.
Okay.
And speaking of Benton, this pottery right here is Nile pottery. It is the spelling of a clay called kaolin, spelled backwards, to create the Nile name. And we're using different colored clays, artificially colored using oxides, ferric for red, cobalt for blue. And they would take a little piece of clay from each color, press it and mix it together, and throw it on a wheel to create
and let it spin and make that design. It's beautiful.
We have approximately 160 pieces on exhibit at the State House. It's a year-long exhibit. Opens today and runs to, I think, June 17th of 2001, and we're looking at all three of these companies.
Okay, and the last company?
The last company we have is
Kmark.
Kmark.
A lot of people call it Kmark.
That's right, but it's actually Kmark, because what they did, Jack Collins, the founder, what he did was take the first three letters from Camden, first three letters from Arkansas, to create the Kmark name.
Okay.
This is a very unique.
Unusual.
This is gold luster, made by a man named John Lassell, and what he did, or what more importantly he's responsible for, is the development of lusterware in America. He worked for many companies. He actually never came to Arkansas, but he did work with Jack Carnes to create this luster, which is solid gold, and to color it requires about 5 or 6 firings. This is very expensive pottery. This piece probably sold for $20, $25 back in the mid-1920s.
And how much would it be worth today?
$15,000 to $2,000.
Wow.
At bare minimum.
Okay. All right. We're almost out of time. What about these pieces? They look a little bit different.
Well, they are. They're a little bit later in production, but they still constitutes art pottery.
Okay.
What you have is this is a blue model with the color blue and a whitish color dripped on it to create at least some aesthetic purposes. Before the companies, and all of them, at least Nyloke and Camark and the pottery companies around America, they had to shift to the mass production mode to keep up with the demand. The people who had more income to spend on luxury items. So they would move away from art pottery form.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. The exhibit lasts from now until June 15th of 2001 at the Old State House. Thank you so much. When we come back, we're going to check in with Barry Brandt, who's going to get a guitar lesson, so stay with us.